Hello, and welcome again to Maturing the Bride. We are on book number 3, which is what we call Cat and Dog Theology. If you recall, we're asking ourselves the question, if we want to become the mature bride, we've got to live more like a dog rather than a cat. And to try to help us understand this in so many areas, today we're going to be looking at cat and dog parenting. What do cat parents look like, and what do dog parents look like? I'm going to be going over 4 different parenting types. These are 4 different parenting types that I've just researched on my own from the internet, looked at different websites. They all basically were saying the same thing, so I've kind of renamed them. The 4 different parenting types are, number 1, helicopter parents. Number 2, best friend parents. Number 3, uninvolved parents. And number 4, what I will call biblical parents. So my goal in this time is to go over these 4 different parenting types for you so that you can kind of analyze them and maybe see which ones you fall in. And then, after reviewing the 4 parenting types, I'm going to summarize both cat and dog parenting into 4 simple words. So it's so easy to understand. 4 simple words. 4 words for cat parenting and 4 words for dog parenting. It's not that hard. It's actually pretty easy. So anyhow, let's get going. Let's review the 4 different parenting types. This is going to go very quickly, but number 1. Number 1 is what are called helicopter parents. The idea of a helicopter, it's hovering over. It's those parents that want to be in total control of their kids. Usually, number 1, one of the parents has to be in total control. So they are constantly watching their children, constantly staying on top of them, and basically saying, obey me or else. And that's kind of what the children learn. I've got to keep my parents happy. And they're constantly going around wondering, are my parents happy? Is what I'm doing keeping my parents happy? Am I pleasing to my parents? No time for silly time. No time for having fun. It's very much a controlled environment where the parents are manipulating and being in charge of everything. Number 2, the children usually follow the rules, but they don't know why. The parents don't educate them on the why. The parents just educate them on the rules. And so the whys are left out. So the children are just obeying, but they don't know why. Number 3, the parents never stop to ask their children for their opinion or their desires. The parents aren't worried about the children's desires or the children's opinion. Why? Because they think they know better. Remember, they're in control. They want to be a very high controlling parent. They know better. No need to ask the children because they know what's best. So what the child wants doesn't count at all. Number 4, helicopter parents always praise the outcome over the effort. They praise the outcome over the effort. So if they struggled and worked hard and got C's, that's terrible. But if they got A's, well, that gets praise. Because it's not the effort that was put into it, it's always the outcome. And so these children are always striving and working to try to be perfect at everything. Now, they also showed in these websites what happens to these children who are under these type of parents. And so children with helicopter parents tend to be angry at their parents. They don't show it on the outside, but they do show it on the inside, and they do show it whispering to their friends. I remember one meeting where I was meeting with some parents and their children, and I had a friend who was down by the children. The children were on my left side, the parents were on my right side. And the parents were saying things, and the children were whispering things. And my friend said, oh man, you would be amazed at what they were saying about their parents. Very disrespectful. But outwardly, very respectful. So inwardly, they can be angry at their parents and rebelling. They tend to lie a lot. Children with helicopter parents tend to lie a lot. Why? They're lying to please the parents because it's all about the parents. So you've got to make the parents happy. And finally, they have little time for fun. They have little time for fun. Why? Because there's no fun time for the parents. It's all about pleasing the parents. You got to make them happy, and so these kids never grow up with much fun. They never grow up with much fun, and so life is just kind of not fun overall. Colossians 3:21 in the Today's Living Bible speaks about it this way. It says, "Fathers, don't scold your children so much that they become discouraged and quit trying." Many kids quit trying to please their parents. Now, men and women, I have a personal testimony on this. I know some friends that are very dear. This is not them, but it just represents the mother and the daughter. But growing up, the mother just was a total control parent. They had to have the healthy drink. So every morning, they're drinking this green barley drink. As little kids, they hated it, but I got to please mom. And so they're doing that. And then there were times when they would be going and through, and the mother would say, "Oh, nope, just one of those. Nope, can't have two of that. Nope." And the child wasn't allowed to do anything on their own. They had to do their music lessons and the music that the parents wanted them to do, not so much the music that the child wanted to do. Always had to have the lessons early in the mornings. And the child begged and begged, "Please let me go to youth group. Please let me go to the youth group at church." The mother kept saying, "No, no, no." Finally, she allowed her child to go. But when she went, the mother sat in the back. And at the end of the youth group meeting, the mom questioned her. "Who were you talking to about this? What were you whispering during the sermon? What about this? What were you saying about that?" Constantly in control of the child. Now, when that child hit 18, guess what happened? They bolted. They were out as fast as you'd never have known it up to that point. They kept it all hidden. There was a volcano inside ready to erupt, but you never knew it. But once they hit 18, boy, did that volcano erupt. They left that house and they bolted. 3 months later, they were pregnant. Now that child, it's been a couple of years, now that child is on their third child with 2 different men, living with the second man while married to the first man. It's a mess. And she's trying to decide whether or not she wants to be a guy or a girl. Oh, men and women. And this child was homeschooled her whole life. But the controlling parent never let the child breathe. And as a result, they rebelled. Helicopter parents. Well, let's go on to the second set of parents, best friend parents. Very different from a helicopter parent. These are the best friends. They do things with the kids. It's wonderful. They set rules, but they rarely enforce the rules. Why? They don't want to enforce them because their kids are their best friends. And who wants to do that to your best friends? Number 2, consequences are rarely given out. If they do set rules and those rules are broken, rarely are the consequences given out. It's just like, well, you probably should have, but not that bad. Number 3, if consequences are given, they rarely stick to those consequences. Again, it's about the child. Let's be friends with the child. We're worried about the children. And they don't discourage poor choices or bad behavior. They constantly allow the child to do what they want. And they're not worried about helping them or training them in making good decisions. They're just trying to be their best friends and trying to help them through. And the child's self-image and happiness is at the highest priority. That is the key. It's at the highest priority. And so they're trying to make the child as happy as they can be and be their best friend to see that come about. And finally, they take on more of a friend role than a parent role. These parents take on more of a friend role than a parent role. So what is characteristics of these children? Well, a couple of things. Children of best friend parents usually struggle academically. Why? The parents really aren't enforcing homework. They're really not enforcing doing their schoolwork. Why? Well, they want to be their friends. And friends don't do that to other friends. So they're trying to be like them. So they're usually struggling academically. Also, they usually have a poor self-esteem. Why? There were no rules. They had nothing to keep. It was just do what I want. And hey, I've got great friend parents. Isn't this fantastic? But who am I? What am I supposed to do? Where am I supposed to go? They may report a lot of sadness. And finally, they have a higher risk of health problems. Health problems? Yeah, why? Parents don't really enforce brushing their teeth. They don't enforce good eating habits. Not like a helicopter parent, but just as a healthy, good parent. They don't enforce good eating habits. As a result, they have a higher risk of health problems. Let me tell you the story. Gerald Robinson, who helped me write Cat and Dog Theology, told me the story about psychologists who basically saw children at a playground, and there was a fence around the whole playground area. And the children were climbing on the fence. And the psychologist said, hey, look at these children, these poor children. They're set up by limitations in the playground. Let's do an experiment. Let's take down the fences. So they took down the fences. And they came back and looked at children in the playground. Guess what they found? All the children were in the center of the playground playing. None of them were going beyond where the fence was. What did they learn? They learned this. Kids are more secure with rules. Kids are more secure. They're healthier. They're better. They're happier with rules that are enforced. Men and women, as parents, set the rules. Set loving, disciplined, common sense rules. Help your kids know why you're doing it, why the rules are there, and then enforce them. Best thing you can do for your kids. It's the best thing you can do for your kids. Why? Kids want rules. They want to know what is right. They want to know what is wrong. They want to know what is good. They want to know what is evil. If you do that for them, you're training them for a lifetime. Training them for a lifetime. Don't be best friend parents. Set rules, set guidelines. All right, there's a third type of parenting, and that's the uninvolved parents. Uninvolved parents. Parents who are so busy doing whatever, they're just not involved at all with their kids. They don't ask their children about friends or school or homework. Why bother? They're too busy doing other things. 2, they don't spend much time with their child due to other interests. So they're not really spending a lot of time with their children, not developing that parent-child relationship. They're busy doing other things. Number 3, they spend as little time as possible in meeting the needs of their children. They spend as little time as possible. Why? They've got other things they've got to do. They've got their priority, their agenda. And number 4, the parent or parents of the child are consumed with bills, work, or simply survival. This can be a lot of single moms, doesn't have to be, but it could be single moms or single dads, so consumed with just trying to survive, they're not able to pour into their children. Men and women, children with uninvolved parents usually do poorly in school. Parents aren't helping them, not keeping them accountable, not in any way trying to encourage them in their schoolwork. Many times they have behavioral problems. Why? They've never related well. They don't have that good, secure foundation in that friendship with their parents as well as the disciplinary action of the parents. So they've got behavioral problems. And they feel they are unwanted. Oh, men and women, that's the worst things we can do to our children is to make them feel unwanted. You need to let them know that they're loved and that they're wanted. Don't be uninvolved parents. Take active roles with your children. Who are your friends? How are they going? Let's have them over. Let's have a party. Let's have a sleepover. What's homework doing? How's it going? Be involved with your child's life. Well, let's go to the 4th, what I will call biblical parents. Parents that have a biblical mandate from God for raising their parents. We get this largely from Deuteronomy 6. There are other passages, but this is the foundational one. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your might. And these words that I command you today shall be on your heart. You shall teach them diligently to your children, and shall talk of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise. You shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. You shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Teach them diligently. Diligently. Men and women, this tells me one thing. Good parenting doesn't happen by accident. Good parenting and good children raised by good parents does not happen by accident. It's a lot of work. It's work. That's all there is to it. It's another full-time job. Write it on your doorpost. Write it on the gates. Teach about it when you're lying down, when you rise up. I remember when my son Hunter was about, 8 or 9 years of age. And he came to me, and we were out in the swimming pool, and he said, "Hey, Dad, I have a question." I said, "Sure, son, what is it?" He says, "Your secretary says shut up, and Mom says that's a swear word. Why does your secretary say it?" I said, "Son, that's a great question." And so I said, let's rate the swear words. So it went from shut up all the way to the F-bomb. I wanted my kids to hear the swear words first from me, and then I wanted them to rate it. So we rated them all the way from shut up. Son, that's a 0.5. Your mom doesn't like it. A lot of other parents don't mind it. That's about a 0.5. And we worked our way up to the F-bomb. This is a 10, son. We don't say those words. He responded and said, "Dad, that was so helpful. That was so helpful." That was while swimming. That was during the course of everyday life. That was my discipleship style with my kids. We would do it while driving down the road, while swimming, while watching TV. We'd ask questions. Hey, they'd ask questions, and I'd give them a little discipleship time. All right, good parenting doesn't happen by accident. You have to plan and work at it. My wife has a wonderful book called Parenting for God's Glory. Parenting for God's Glory, creatively training children in honor and respect. This book is new, but it's fresh, but it's out, and she's got suggestions for every age of life. And so she looks at all of her children. She says there are 4 basic stages of parenting. 4 stages of parenting that you need to work on. Number 1 is 0 to 5 years of age. And she has very practical things for you to do, even with an 8-month-old. I said, "An 8-month-old? Honey, what are you talking about?" Oh, she said, "Oh, yeah. When you're changing them on the diaper, when you're changing their diaper and you've got them up there on the stand," he says, "you can give verbal controls of yes and no, and they'll start to learn that." I said, "Oh, okay, that kind of makes sense." 0 to 5, and then 5 to 12, and then 12 to 18, and then from 18 on. In 0 to 5, she calls those the training years, training in the very basic things. 5 to 12 years old, that's teaching. You go beyond training, now you're starting to teach. In 12 to 18, you're coaching, helping them make decisions and to make good decisions and evaluating, was that a good decision or a bad decision? I remember my son Hunter had his first girlfriend. He wanted to date. None of the other kids dated. He wanted to date. I said, "Okay, if you want to date, let's talk about it. Let's keep in close touch." So he had his first girlfriend, and he texted me, "Dad, can I kiss her?" And I texted back, "N-O," both caps. He texted back, "Are you sure?" Y-E-S. So that night, my wife and I were in bed, and Hunter comes in about 11 p.m., jumps in the middle of the bed right between us. He's such a great kid. We love him to death. He turned around, looked up, and he said, "That was a good call, Dad. That was a good call." So, anyhow, coaching your children, helping them in those ages of 12 to 18. And then finally, 18 years of age, you're mentoring them. You're kind of taking off the parent hat, putting on a friendship hat at that point in time. You're talking to them adult to adult and helping them work through issues. Now, as a couple, I want you to see, Dad, a lot of this is on you. Fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord. Fathers, this is your job. This is your role. It's not the job of the youth pastor. It's not the job of the pastor. It's your job. You are the one to raise them up in the discipline of the Lord. Don't let somebody else do that. This takes work. This takes time. This means maybe not as much golf, not as much of the other fishing or whatever you like to do or hunting. This takes work, and it doesn't happen by accident. Women, Titus chapter 2, older women likewise are to be reverent in behavior, not slanderers or slaves to too much wine. They are to teach what is good, And so train the young women to love their husbands and children and to be self-controlled, pure, working at home, kind. Love their husbands and children. As the father's disciplining, you're loving. You're loving. Gerald Robinson gave me some of the best wisdom as I was growing up with my kids. He said, Bob, when the kids are young, they need the mom. But when they're teenagers, they need the dad. And that was so helpful for me to try to train them both, but to realize I really need to be focusing on them when they are teenagers. Both instructing them, but then really getting deep with them in their teenagers' years. And I did that quite a bit with my kids, and it was wonderful. We had a Bible study. My 14-year-old son came to me and says, Dad, can you do a Bible study for me and my friends? I said, well, sure, let's do it. And so for 4 years, every fall and every spring, we went on Friday nights, okay? Most kids are out of the football games on Friday nights. They were in our living room, and a couple of hours, 3 hours each night, and then Debbie and I poured ourselves into them. And we taught them what we knew from the Scriptures. It was a great idea. It was great. And we did it with Abby and Hunter. And with Hunter, we did what we called digging deeper. We held about once a quarter, once every half a year. We did digging deepers where we brought them to our homes and we spent 4 hours we fed them dinner Friday night. Then we spent 4 hours in the Word teaching them. They all slept over, the guys in one room, girls in another room. Then they woke up. We fed them breakfast. 2 hours or 3 hours in the morning, lunch, and then 2 hours in the afternoon. They got 10 hours in the Word of God. 10 hours in God's Word. We poured our lives into these kids. And one of them came to me and said, wow, this was fantastic. I just went to a youth retreat. I had to pay $75 and they got me about 1 hour in the Word. This didn't cost me anything. And I got 10 hours in the Word. They loved it. They ate it up. But they were hungry. I will admit that. We only chose the hungry ones. And they were hungry. But interestingly enough, the ones that have stuck with it are doing great, and the ones that have really gone west, south, whatever you want to call it, all had divorced parents. Either divorced parents or the father died. Parenting is such a key role. It is such a key role, parenting. Stick together for the glory of the Father, and you'll see the fruit not only in your marriage, but in your parenting. So anyhow, Mom, that's your role, loving these kids. My wife gives 9 clear standards from the home in her book. These are the standards. Number 1, children should obey their parents quickly, cheerfully, and completely. Quickly, cheerfully, and completely. We've taught this around in Kenya as well, because we do a lot of ministry in Kenya. And I love a young man named Peter. Peter takes this and he goes into the schools, and in the schools in Kenya, the public schools, every Friday there are classes on spirituality. If you're Muslims, go to this classroom. If you're Christians, go to this classroom. And so Peter goes in every Friday and he teaches them. Here's a quick sample of him doing it. Number 2, temper tantrums should not be allowed. We had discovered this with one of our children who, at 2 years of age, threw temper tantrums. I mean, big time temper tantrums on the floor, kicking and screaming. This is where Debbie really got involved with parenting. She called up one of the women in church, what do I do? And this woman guided her. She's the woman that kind of helped Debbie learn all this stuff. She's not a co-author of the book, but Debbie gives her a lot of the credit of what she taught. And so we began to grab the child and just hold them and hold them and hold them and spoke softly to them. We don't do this. Count to 10 and lovingly. And we've got 4 children, you know, and of our 4 children, there's our 4 children. Abby there on the far left, Elise here, Luke there, and Hunter here. Abby is currently a bartender. Elise was a missionary and now is a teacher. Luke is currently a missionary. Hunter works in the business world here in the Richmond. And everybody would have thought, oh, it was Abby, right? No, it was Elise. Elise was the one who had major temper tantrums. They say, Elise? No way. Yeah. But we nipped it in the bud. Debbie nipped it in the bud by holding them gently and whispering in their ears, training them. We don't do this. We don't do this. Number 3, children should obey parents and other trustworthy adults. Obedience. You need to obey. First-time obedience. We tried to teach this to our children. First-time obedience didn't always work. When my son Hunter was his little entrepreneurial side, had his little jobs, I would help him. And I remember carrying these two things for my son. He said, no, Dad, drop that and turn around and do this other thing. So I dropped it, turned around, and he looked at me and he says, oh, is that what first-time obedience is? I said, yeah, son, that's first time. He said, oh, now I get it. He was 20-some years old at the time. But children should obey parents and other trustworthy adults. First-time obedience. Number 4, children should not interrupt adult conversation. Oh, that one's so powerful. It's so wonderful to see kids who have been trained by Debbie's material. There's a secret code or a secret way that Debbie has for doing it, of placing their hand on the parent's arm so that the parent then holds the hand saying, I know you're trying to get my attention. Thank you for not interrupting me. Great way of doing it. Number 5, children should relate to the physical environment around them with respect and love. With respect and love. Number 6, children should not yell around adults engaged in conversation. Just having simple respect for the adults around them. Number 7, children should learn to greet adults and friends properly. Oh, I cannot tell you how many times our children had to practice the handshake and look them in the eye. And the 3 different ways you can have conversations with adults. What's okay, what's better, and what's best. And so our children had to learn all 3. And our children do great with greeting people because they learned it as a child. Number 8, children should learn to use the phone with honor and respect. So you're training them on the phone. And number 9, children should respect the dignity of others with kindness and love. All of these things are found in her book. And her parenting, men and women, her parenting isn't boring. She's using puppets, so she's got puppets that the kids use. And she'll tell the parents, okay, here's what you do. You get your child, you put him in the lap over here, and the daddy says, okay, walk. And the mom walks with the puppet, stop. And so the mom stops with the puppet, walk, stop, walk, go, stop, go, stop. And so the children love it watching mommy do this with the puppets. And then, okay, then the children get with the mommy and the dad says, go, stop, go, stop, go, stop. And then finally, the child has the puppet by themselves and he's learning go, stop, go, stop. Children love this. A, you're spending time with them, so they feel loved, they feel wanted. B, you're giving them rules, they feel comfortable with that, and they love doing this. And then the parenting rule of not interrupting a conversation, putting your hand on their arms. Again, kids love that. And how to stop a temper tantrum. All in Deb's book. Highly encourage it. It is helping so many parents. And then she also uses umbrellas, levels of authority. God is over us all. He's over the fathers. And the father's umbrella is over the mother's umbrella. And the mother's umbrella is over the children. And so you're saying, hey, what happens when you get outside of an umbrella? Oh, you get wet. That's right. Wet means discipline. That's what happens. You stay under the umbrella, you're good. You outside the umbrella, you're going to get disciplined. And so this family that we use for our pictures, this young man, his name is Van. We got a phone call from his mom. And Van, and the mom is saying, Debbie, I got to tell you the story. Van is about to jump off the couch. He knows he's not supposed to. I see him standing there, but he hasn't jumped yet. And he's standing there and he's thinking. And I said, Van, what are you thinking about? And he turned to his mom and he said, I'm thinking about what's going to happen if I get out from underneath the umbrella. And then he chose to sit down. And she said, oh, Debbie, it's working. It's working. It's really working. She also talks about when to discipline and when not to discipline. And her foundational rule, always discipline in love, never in anger. For those who have rejected discipline, they're rejecting it because they saw it done in anger and they said, I'm never going to do that to my child. But the way Debbie teaches it, no, you discipline in love, never in anger. It's a whole different disciplinary process. And don't forget, God disciplines us. And if God disciplines us, Hebrews chapter 12, why shouldn't we be disciplining our children? Men and women, good parenting does not happen by accident. It takes work. But the fruit is incredible. It's incredible. We've got 4 adult children. They made 4 great choices for their spouses. And when we have family reunions, it's so beautiful. There's no tiptoeing around. There's no, oh, well, these people are in this room and these people are in that room and they never talk until they say goodbye. No, no. We have great times of playing together, vacation together. It's wonderful. The fruit of good parenting is beautiful. Hang in there. Hang in there. I know it's hard work. We did it for 30-some years. Hang in there. It's worth it. It's worth it. You will reap the fruit. All right, the 4 parenting types. Number 1, helicopter parents. Number 2, best friend parents. Number 3, uninvolved parents. And what I'll call number 4, biblical parents. Now, I told you I was going to summarize cat and dog theology into 4 words. 4 words that'll summarize cat parenting and 4 words that'll summarize dog parenting. You ready for it? If you don't get anything out of this talk, get this. Cat parenting can be summarized in 4 words. It's not hard. In 4 words. Here they are. Do not embarrass me. Do not embarrass me. Why do I want you to get good grades? So I won't be embarrassed. Why do I not want you to get pregnant before you get married? I don't want to be embarrassed. Why do I want you to obey the rules? So that I'm not embarrassed. And what the parents have non-verbally communicated all of their parenting life, it's about me. It's about me. It's about me. So when the kids become parents, guess what they're communicating? It's about me. It's about me. And it just keeps going from generation to generation to generation until the Lord changes it. Do not embarrass me. Dog parenting, 4 words. Live to glorify God. Live to glorify God. When our oldest son, the one who is a missionary now over in the Middle East, working with Syrian refugees, when he was in high school, he wanted to be a sports broadcaster. He wanted to be on the main screen doing basketball. He wanted to broadcast basketball. We said to him, go for it. And be the best broadcaster for the glory of God. We never pushed him into missions. We never pushed him to go overseas. We said, do what you feel the Lord is calling you to do. Well, it was later on, in the very late of his junior year into his senior year, the Lord caught him and wanted him to go overseas. But we encouraged him, just whatever you choose to do it for the glory of God. I think that's somewhere in the Scriptures. Whatever you do, whether you eat or drink, do it all for the glory of God. Live for God's glory. But so many parents are missing it. Why? They've just been 1 degree off. They thought that Christ died primarily for them, and it got translated into their parenting and their marriage, and so they missed so much. I hope this has been helpful for you. Parenting for the glory of God. In our last time in cat and dog theology, we're going to be going over what would a dog church look like? If we're talking about churches, what does a dog church look like? What are characteristics of a dog church? Welcome to Maturing the Bride.